Hi everyone, it's me, Krista. Welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. If not, welcome for the very first time to my little art corner here on YouTube. We are still doing Inktober. Today is day 22 and today's prompt is Ghost. I missed recording of the initial sketch and some of the initial white ink work. I'm sorry for that. I'm still using a Strathmore mixed media paper, a toned one in tone blue. I used a pastel chalk pencil for some of the white outlines, and then I just used a regular mechanical pencil to add in a tiny bit of shading, so I had an idea of where I was going. I did look at a reference photo of basically just a sheet on someone's face. This goes far further than that. A lot of this ends up being quite a bit of freestyling. At first I thought I was not going to add any black lines to it, so I started with putting in a lot of that white ink, just some Winsor Newton white, and using a waterbrush to apply it to help give it a ethereal, ghostly quality, and I started pulling in some gray markers in order to help with some of the shading at this point. All I knew going in for this one is that I wanted there to be quite a few flowing white lines, and that I did not want to just do a yurei. I didn't want to do another Japanese female ghost, because I do those a lot. I've done quite a few of those in my day, and I wanted to try to play around with something a little different. At this point in the drawing, the plan, and I will use plan in quotations because there really wasn't much of a plan, was to just add a bunch of white ink and layer it up and get some soft shading that way. It starts a little bit more painterly, quite a bit softer, and as I continue and work on it more and more, I add a lot of different lines, and I do pull in some black later, and it increasingly becomes a little darker, a little more evil looking, maybe even slightly demonic looking. Oopsie. And honestly, I could have ended this drawing around this point here where I'm pulling in the hairdryer to help my white ink dry more quickly. But I just wanted to keep going, keep playing, keep adding some lines. I do really find line work like this soothing. It's probably why I do it so much. Something about it just makes me happy. I am pulling in a couple of different gray markers for this to help pull in some of the grays a little bit more and add some darker grays going on. I am still pulling in that Kuretake Zig Clean Color Dot marker, and I also am pulling in some Derwent Graphik line makers. I always want to say line markers. They're line makers, and it is just a 3-piece set. Both of these came in previous sketch boxes. To help further define some of those white lines, I do eventually pull in a white Posca pen, a white gel pen, and I accidentally pull in a white water-based Sharpie paint marker. And at this point in the drawing, I'm literally just going back and forth between the white ink, the white markers, the white gel pen, and the gray markers I have. It's just a lot of alternating between those items at this point. I'm using a lot of the same ideas that I used in the one for Enchanted when I did the smoke coming out of the apple. When I think of ghosts, I guess I do think of them being more smoky like this. An ectoplasmic vapor, if you will. I'm not gonna lie, I almost like this one better than before I started pulling in the black lines. Something about how soft and whimsical it is. I really enjoy it. I was worried about doing a project that ended up only being like 20 minutes though, so I kept going and kept playing with it, kept building on it. Sometimes I've noticed as an artist I have this tendency to overwork something or feel like I haven't worked on it long enough and I keep going back to it. In a way, Inktober has been good for that because you only have a certain amount of time you can work on something and you have to call it and be like, okay, we're done. We can't do anything else to this now. I can't keep messing with it on end for months every time I look at it. Gotta just let it be. Does anyone else have that problem, or is it just me? Let me know in the comment section down below if there are just certain pieces that you keep feeling like you have to keep messing with and touching. Like every time you look at it, you're like, there's something wrong, I have to go mess with it. Even if it's not necessarily true, let me know. Even while I'm recording this video, the finished project is staring at me, begging for me to keep playing with it. I won't, because at this point, I'm just gonna mess it up if I keep playing with it. But I feel like it's taunting me. At this point in the drawing, I have started bringing in that Kuretake Zig marker of unknown type that I have been using this entire Inktober pretty much. I start lightly pulling in some of the black, very progressively, and I continue to pull more and more in as I keep going. I also experimented with giving the ghostie some pupils in their eyes, and I decided against that. Didn't really care for how that looked. And now, instead of just using the grays and whites to go back forth in between, I am also going to be pulling in some blacks, adding that in, and layering, drying with the hairdryer, going back and forth between the markers I'm using, adjusting, thinking, obsessing, the usual. And I start narrowing and making smaller lines as I keep going too. I started with kind of broader white lines, and they progressively become smaller and thinner the further along I get into this one. I start out kind of loose and then start tightening it up a little bit at a time, progressively tightening up the lines, making things smaller. I did like the gray in the background, but I decided I wanted more contrast, so I did the black in the background. And although the lines do progressively get thinner as I go, they're still really messy looking. Since I started committing to the black lines, I wanted it to have that almost like pulp comic book feel, like those really old horror comic books. See? And even at this point, I could have probably stopped, but I kept going. It's interesting how, with this one, I feel like I could have stopped it multiple times and it would have been completely fine. Weird how that works. And I'm still using that same black marker and progressively adding in more black. Feels like I lightened up everything and then decided that I needed to darken it up a little bit more. And it might not seem like I had fun with this one, because I keep saying, oh, but I could have stopped here, oh, I could have stopped here, I liked it better at this point. I'm still happy with the final project. I still like how it ended up. And I also find it interesting watching it back and seeing how this project had started and how it progressed and how it changed. Because the facial shape changes multiple times, the entire feeling of the piece changes multiple times. And when I'm doing something more freeform like this, it is kind of fascinating to watch and see how often it changes and exactly what changes I decide on while I'm doing it. I'm just continually making decisions and changing my mind throughout this entire thing, and it's fascinating to see those changes in action. And a lot of these changes that I made did shift from the beginning of it being kind of soft, kind of pretty, to it feeling more and more malevolent as I went on. This face seems much angrier than the face that I had started with, and I'm not mad at that. I also had contemplated the entire time whether I wanted to add red eyes or yellow eyes. I do end up adding red eyes later, but I was thinking about it pretty much this entire time and trying to decide whether I wanted to leave them a bright white or if I wanted to throw in a pop of creepy color. And right here I pull in some Prismacolor red and then go over it with a Sharpie. It ends up not being quite as bright as I wanted it to be. I wanted those eyes to pop out at ya. I also decided to change the mouth shape and the jawline quite a bit as I keep going. The way I am working is very moldable. It's very malleable. People think ink is super permanent. When you work in certain ways, especially if you start on a toned paper and you treat it more like a painting, you can mess around with it more and change things around a lot. As you can see by this entire process, you can change the entire face and how it looks if you really want to. You just gotta know how to move the stuff around and layer a lot. I do decide that the eyes are still not as red as I want them to be, so I do pull in the Rowney Aquafine watercolor ink in red to try to help them pop out a little bit more. I guess it's not just any red, it's cadmium red hue, that very, very bright red right there. I also decided that I didn't like my dots quite how they were in the background there, so I do cover it up with the black. It's still slightly visible through it, and I do add some more with a white gel pen later. The amount that I had was pulling away from my little ghosty lady a little bit too much. I go over that red again with a different red water-based Sharpie marker, and that one seemed to have a lot more juice to it. So as you can see, those eyes definitely stand way out now. Still can't believe that we are on day 22 of Inktober. We are in the home stretch now of both Inktober and of this video. I'm just adding more lines. Shocking, I know, like that isn't what I've been doing this entire time. Let me know in that comment section down below what you've been doing for Inktober. Let me know if you have any comments, questions, feelings, or concerns. What you've been learning, how you've been doing. Tell me, please. If you liked this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, please feel free to subscribe. I do want to thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy day or night to listen to me ramble about art stuff. I really appreciate it. I look forward to hearing from you guys soon, and you will definitely be hearing from me soon. Bye, everybody!